The idea of voting for a black woman, I thought it was quite a headline and quite a story to be posting in August, but I'll at least give you a crack at it because it was at the top of the Times yesterday.
Look, I appreciate that we need conflict. I appreciate that we need news. But I can tell you that black men are supportive of Kamala Harris. I can tell you that the black men that we engage with, and again, Essence is traditionally a women's enterprise, but more than 30% of the audience are men.
That's right.
And so those men actually support Kamala Harris. And importantly, when we break down the issues, when we talk about the economy, when we talk about health care, when we talk about access to resources, when we talk about access to capital, they know that they have a better chance with Kamala Harris than anyone else that is running for president of the United States. And so I think we'll see over the next few weeks, in the next few months, more and more black men and black people being clear about who they're supporting in this election.
Can I add something to what Alfonso said? Because I think what we also have to pay attention to, Joe, with your comment is, over time, when we look at what happens between the black community and mainstream, the first thing they always try to do is divide the black men and black women. They always try to divide us, right? So I also think that in addition to what my colleague Alfonso said is, please don't underestimate how close black women and black men are. We support each other. You can play all you want in media about whether or not we're separated, but that's a game we've known for decades. We stand together, we lead together, we engage together as black men and black women on behalf of our community.
And Joe, it is also fascinating that every 4 years we hear the same stories, especially in the age of Donald Trump. Yeah. Oh, Trump is going to get 25% of the black vote. Trump's going to get the... I have been spun year after year about how he has this special magic with black men. The numbers just haven't played out. They didn't play out in 16. They didn't play out in 20. He hasn't been at any number, Mika, above where, you know, Republicans have been in the past. Not significantly, at least.
But, Joe, let me give you a news flash. Every black man entered this world from a black woman.
Come on. Come on. And every black woman brought them forth through a black man.
That's right. Issue of Essence magazine featuring Vice President Kamala Harris is out now. President and CEO of Essence Ventures, Caroline Wanga, and President and CEO of the Global Black Economic Forum, Alfonso David. Thank you both so much for being on this morning. And the third hour of Morning Joe continues right now.
Hello, Arizona! Hey. Yeah. Wow. Well, you might have seen a few people showed up in Philadelphia the other night. And then 10,000 plus walked into a field in western Wisconsin. And then on Wednesday, the largest crowd of the campaign showed up in Detroit, Michigan. But Arizona just couldn't leave it alone, could you? Wow. You know, it's not as if anybody cares about crowd sizes or anything. So.
Woo! Okay, Vice Presidential nominee Tim Walz poking the bear just a little bit during his rally with Vice President Kamala Harris. On Friday, we've seen thousands of supporters show up for the new Democratic ticket since their debut last Tuesday in Philadelphia. Wow. What a difference a week
look at those numbers. I mean, Mika, look at the numbers. I mean, the Philadelphia event, I remember when we that first came out, it seems like 2 weeks ago, doesn't it? And you saw it was so huge. And then the Wisconsin seemed to be even bigger. Detroit was mammoth. Then Glendale reports of 15,000 people there, more than Barack Obama had in his 2008 campaign. And then the Vegas show last night, and let's just say what it is. These have transcended politics and gotten into popular culture. They just have. It's something that we've talked about before. We talked about with Barack Obama. We talked about how it happened in 1980 with Ronald Reagan. But you have people talking about these things like their rock shows, like their Taylor Swift events. People asking if, their parents, if they can, younger people who weren't even interested in the campaign, asking their parents. I've heard several times, hey, you think we can get into one of these events? Can we drive? And you, of course, know people that have not only been Republicans their entire life, but actually worked as Republicans on the Hill, talking about driving 5 hours with friends to go to these events. It's going to be one of the great challenges for Republicans and for the Trump-Vance team to try to figure out how to slow down this momentum, because right now it just seems day in and day out to keep getting more powerful by the day. And unfortunately for Republican strategists, Donald Trump is doing the opposite of what they want him to do. Really quickly, let me just read this. This is from the New York Times, talking about over the past couple of weeks. Mr. Trump has questioned Ms. Harris's racial identity at a conference for black journalists. He later attacked Brian Kemp, the popular Republican governor in the key swing state of Georgia. He's seen new polling that put him behind Ms. Harris in several key states. And Mark Halperin reporting that numerous campaign contributors who spent the weekend with Trump on his Western money swing came away shaken by his fixation on press coverage, crowd size, and election stealing, to the exclusion of issues on which he might actually win back the White House. And of course, everybody was talking. We will get to this, Mika. This also from Halperin's newsletter this morning. Taking the cake online, Halperin writes, was his truly politically worse than claiming 2020 was stolen, and politically worse than celebrating January 6th accusation that Kamala Harris used AI to generate a fake crowd at her Michigan rally, an accusation so unhinged, writes Halperin, that I can barely type this paragraph, a charge so fundamentally ludicrous that Stephen King himself at first thought it must be a joke.
Right. The Post is really, it deserves a place of its own in the conversation coming up. We'll get to that. We're going to have to read through it, because you make a great point. It's just hard to believe. That is how much Kamala Harris's crowds have gotten to him. Meanwhile, the vice president is trying to flip the script on the issue of immigration, putting the blame for the problems at the border squarely on the former president, of course, because he told Republicans to not go with the best deal they could ever get on immigration. And former San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown is questioning Donald Trump's memory after Trump claimed the two rode in a helicopter together, which Brown says never happened. And now it seems it was a different man that Trump was thinking of. Super cringeworthy, but we'll get to that in just a moment. With us, we have the host of Way Too Early, White House Bureau Chief at Politico, Jonathan Lemire. U.S. Special Correspondent for BBC News, Katty Kay, is with us. President of the National Action Network and host of MSNBC's Politics Nation, Reverend Al Sharpton, is here. And MSNBC contributor and author of the book, How the Right Lost Its Mind, Charlie Sykes, along with us. And conservative attorney George Conway is here as well. A lot to get to, Joe. A lot of movement of the Harris-Walz campaign across the country, right. Also in the polls.
Yeah, of course, Jonathan Lemire, we could talk about the polls, the New York Times Siena polls, which have always trended Trump. Took a sharp turn over the past week. Now, Harris up into three key industrial states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Just a really dramatic shift. That's something Donald Trump obviously is seeing And there you see, again, all three states. And the numbers inside the numbers are even more surprising how quickly, how dramatically things have changed. And if you look at those numbers and you look at the numbers inside the numbers, you are reminded what Americans have been telling us for the past 4 years. They did not want a repeat of 2020. And so they don't have a repeat of 2020. You look at those numbers, though, first of all, really quickly, the economy. We haven't seen the economy that close in several years. It's just a 6-point gap, obviously, on abortion. Kamala Harris well ahead there. Immigration, only 5 points. And, you know, it's fascinating. I think if they continue the argument, Harris-Walz continue the argument that she put forward in Arizona, you're going to actually see those numbers tighten up even more, because she has a winning argument, because it happens to be the truth. Donald Trump killed the strongest border protection bill in the past 30 years for political reasons. But Jonathan, let's start this week with a big picture. One, Kamala Harris is doing very well in the polls for now. It's only August. We said it when it was only July, and when it was only June. It's only August. Things don't get real until the end of September when people start to vote. So it's only August. She's certainly doing very well right now. But there's two sides to this coin. Not only is she doing well and doing far better than I think most anybody expected her to do, Donald Trump, according to his supporters, according to his staffers, doing worse, doing everything they begged him not to do. So he's talking about January 6th, as this Mark Halperin report says about the fundraising and everything else, a near meltdown with a lot of fundraisers, because he kept talking about crowd sizes. And, of course, you can go back to his first day as president of the United States and what he did there. So Harris doing well on one side, Donald Trump doing everything his staff does not want him to do on the other side. And then we got to say that I was with Stephen King when I read that Truth Social post about her crowds being fake. I was sure. I said, I'm not going to fall for this one. I was sure that it was a fake post. In fact, I remained sure it was a fake post for several hours until we got confirmation. This is truly, again, I'm going to quote Halperin here. Politically worse than claiming 2020 was stolen, and politically worse than celebrating January 6th. This accusation even more unhinged than that. And I think a lot of people are there, Republicans, who are now fretting that he seems to be getting worse at the very worst time for Republicans.
Completely disconnected from reality. And let's do big picture. And let's start with the Democratic side. I mean, first of all, what a successful barnstorming tour here for Vice President Harris and her new running mate, hitting battleground state after battleground state, drawing these huge crowds, sharpening their message. And yes, in Arizona, that's important. The Vice President saying, look, I was a border state senator. I can talk about immigration. And here, this is a deal that was on the table, authored by one of the most conservative Republicans in the Senate, Lankford of Oklahoma, and Donald Trump killed it for political gain. And if she can keep hitting that message, those numbers in that poll we just showed will continue to close. I mean, I don't think there are many Democrats who think they're going to win on the issue of immigration, maybe not even win on the issue of the economy. But if they can mitigate the damage, and then Trump's advantage in those two categories